Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Joy, Resistance, Hope, and Survival Book Club and Support Group. Though it feels much more like the book club and therapy session, since a support group generally involves a licensed professional and more than one other person. And once again, this month we have a licensed professional and one other person. So Lee Woods from Psychocomicology joins us again. This month we read Grant Snider's Thinking About Thinking, which is a book that I love. I had Grant Snider on around when it came out. He's a really good guy. I'm certain I'll have him back at some point. Um, I love his newsletter, which often has the cartoon that he just did or whatever. Sometimes it has exercises, sometimes it has ruminations, as you just read. Often that's essentially what he publishes is like his collection of exercises and ruminations. So I'm going to start off with we got to do our check-in. I'm it's been a weird week. We hit on this a little bit in the when we recorded our weekly episode earlier today, but like you look at the news at all and you're like, why are we have a president literally threatening all out war, possibly nuclear war? Why the hell aren't we freaking the fuck out way more than we are? And then you like spend time in the world and it's like gas prices are higher, but otherwise life feels very much the same. Was I hallucinating this morning when I read the president's I guess truths?
Yeah. Huh.
So there's like a disconnect this week, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, that's where I'm at. It was a weird week. I felt less tethered to reality than sometimes just because it was hard to figure out what was real and in front of me and what I knew to be real in the world were just so different. Like when you read about shit like this in history books and whatever, it's like, shouldn't we be like doing food drives and or going into bunkers and why are we acting like nothing is happening?
Can seem very discombobulating at times, for sure. Especially when
Um,
something seems like to be of like very huge import, for sure.
your civilization will be gone from the most powerful person in the world. Shouldn't it feels heavier than a Tuesday?
Yeah. I'm yeah, and I'm thinking back, well, I don't want to jump too far ahead. When it comes to that aspect, right? It's almost like I think you said it well. It's a disconnect, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
sort of seem real. Where it's just like, man, like that happened, right? Like it's almost like as if
Well, and is happening because like we had
yeah,
our
yeah.
peace talks that didn't go anywhere very predictably because it was very clear when we had our, and I'm doing the big, huge air quotes again,
Mhm.
ceasefire, that not all parties were completely on board and certainly didn't have the same basis for where we were starting. So it's like, where exactly are we in like, I feel like maybe things are going the right way, and maybe I'm going to wake up in the morning and discover that like we're reinstituting the draft this week. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So yeah,
Yeah. It's almost like I'm imagining especially in my work with like certain like groups or families where it's just like, yeah, we had a fight last week, right? Or even like we had a fight yesterday, right? Why does it seem like everything's fine now? Is it fine? I don't think it's fine. We never like
right.
it's
Did
almost
we
like a
actually resolve something,
uh-huh.
or have we managed to engage in some? mass psychosis, or is it really that whatever it is wasn't actually that big, so it didn't require resolution. It just required everybody agreeing, hey, no big deal, and moving on. That feels more like something you can do with families than countries.
Well, it's almost like the I don't know why it may well it comes from the cartoon that I'm sure we're going to talk about soon is that
Yeah, we will in
almost
a
like
second. Yeah.
the head in the sand like the ostrich just put your
Uh-huh.
head in the sand doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, also
So,
too it reminds me too of sometimes when things are seemingly choose my words carefully here are seemingly so far away like out of contact with our sort of everyday lives, it's very easy to think or feel or perceive that it's not really happening
right,
until it happens,
right.
if that makes
Or
sense.
there's nothing for me to do about it, so I'm not gonna because like and tell me if this is me, because I never know if this is my autistic brain or if this is my bipolarness or if this is a thing that like I see that other people don't. Um, because one of the most common things you'll hear is I can't think about it because what can I do about it? And it's like, no, you can't prevent the war,
Mm-hmm.
but you can comfort your neighbors. You
Hmm.
can, I mean, look at what the people of Minneapolis have done for each other. There's so many things that we can do if we're not going, oh, that doesn't affect me, so I'm going to live my life like nothing is happening. And I don't always know which ones matter and which ones don't, and I don't think anybody does, but like I at least feel like if you know that something's happening, rather than just writing it off as I can't do anything, doing something, even if it's just to make your corner of the world. I mean, this is we'll
Hmm.
go to the paint. The I love the one where he's like, I do everything I can to keep my world beautiful, and he's like cleaning up the dust and whatnot, and he's in like this open air room in the desert with sand continuing to come in. And yes, that can be how it feels, but like, isn't it still worthwhile to be there and engaged with your community on a level?
Yeah,
I
it
don't know.
certainly can be, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I think at some point depends on the person and individual, and this is not to
Yeah.
romanticize psychology too much, but one of my sort of special interests is that it's not just individual psychology, but social psychology as well.
Yeah.
Because who'd have thunk it? Groups are made up of people. And
What?
yeah, who'd have thunk it? And so we come in with our own sort of beliefs or perspectives, and but then also when we're a part of a group, how that can change or be
Yeah.
skewed. So yeah, it depends on like the community. It depends on the social support, but also if that's a sort of subcultural, microcultural component that is
Yeah, no,
also.
I was just reading a short piece on Milton Friedman and his part in neoliberalism and essentially like, his economic contribution is essentially that there is no society. There are people who look out for their own interests. So he actually, his first major book, and like I'm completely paraphrasing and don't know my Friedman really well, except that I do know that there was a shift in his thinking because at one point, his first seminal like essay that put him on the the map seemed to acknowledge that government could do things for social needs, but that it wasn't the responsibility of corporations to do things for social needs. Their only their only thing was to make a profit. And if there
Mhm.
was if there was something that wasn't profit driven, that that was required, then it was the government's job to make laws because the corporations weren't supposed to break the law to make a profit, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Um, but apparently he got really upset by the um, JFK ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, because
Right.
his argument was that a free man would neither ask what his country could do for him or what he could do for his country. And it's like, but we all share space. I mean, that's always been my problem with that version of freedom is like, okay, but like that assumes that your actions don't have consequences for other people.
Hmm.
And if you pollute the air, you're not the only one affected. If you pollute the water supply, you're not the only one affected.
Right.
If you hoard resources, you're not the only one affected.
Hmm.
You know, um, I mean, eh, that kind of freedom, I think, leads to, I mean, under that kind of freedom, can you have, say, laws against murder? And for that matter, we sometimes like are leaning that way when you talk about castle laws or stand your own ground laws, where people are allowed to take another's life in defense of their property or ego or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, but that's a way darker level to start
Right.
this because thinking
Well,
about thinking, well, you can
yeah.
definitely take it, and I think one of the reasons it popped into my head was because I literally had just finished reading Thinking About Thinking, and I had a newsletter, and that had the Friedman, and I thought about it on a different level than I might have
Yeah.
thought about it otherwise. So that's why it's all in my head at once right now.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, because at least in my head, the way it sort of shook out is not just actions having consequences, right? But as a CBT practitioner or cognitive behavior therapist, is that what you think affects how you behave, right?
right,
And it's very easy to look at the behaviors and the consequences of said behaviors. But even in individual and group therapy, what I do is I look at the thought process, right? It's looking at that space in your head and what's processed there that leads to the behaviors, right?
right.
And that perspective that you were talking about, Tad, especially when it comes to community, is yeah, how do you think about community? And what do you
Yeah.
think
Do
about how you
you
think
think
about
in such a
community?
way where you have a responsibility to any of the people around you,
Mhm.
you
And
know, or all of the people around? I mean, I think that's one of the big differences is like, I think you don't find many people who don't think that they have some responsibilities to people other than themselves, but the how many changes.
hmm
I feel like I have responsibility to everyone,
hmm
whether I know them or not. Clearly, there are a lot of people who don't think that they have any responsibility to people who aren't U.S. citizens. There are other people who don't feel like they have responsibilities outside their own families. Um, and it does. It change. Like there's so many just little um, assumptions that you can work from that will change the entire way that you think.
yeah. And it's I know you referenced some of the panels in the book, and I'm currently trying to find it and because I have it on Hoopla on my
Me too.
phone,
Yeah.
is that there's several of these little stories and illustrations where it does just that. It talks about like that thought process or some of the struggles or challenges, but how often other people get involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they, pardon me, they don't necessarily have like a speaking role or line of dialogue, but you see that that anxiety, as it were, just looking at some of the panels here, the anxiety, how yeah, it can be a lonely battle or it can be a very isolating battle, but at the same time, it's not just how it affects you, right? It's how you affects your behaviors around others as well.
Right.
Uh, Here's one, yeah. But yeah, it's just like New Year's resolutions. You got the first five panels, it's by
Go back to
themselves.
old stuff.
Yeah. And it's like then you have a panel with someone else, lonely
Right.
again, and then the next panel there's people dancing. And then
Right.
it's just it's how that can translate to how you interact with other people.
Right. Um, like we've started like even more in media res than I so often do. You can probably see that I'm in a highly autistic, anxious state. Which is why I'm going to kick it to you to particularly because this was your first read of this book.
Mhm.
Why don't you introduce the book to the audience and give your basic thoughts, just
Yeah.
from like what you knew about it when I sent it to you was nothing. You knew the
Yeah.
title and the
Yep.
name I sent you. I don't know if you wound up looking into anything more or if all you know is what you read. So like yeah.
Yeah, all I know is what I read. So thank you for that. And I think there's a lot of value for me. I don't go in with a preconceived notion. So the book that we read was Thinking About Thinking by Grant Snider. A very sort of simplistic sort of a summary of it is that it's a many collections and illustrations of like almost like one or two page stories. Um, about certain topics, whether it be just New Year's resolutions, looking at anxieties, overthinking. Overthinking is a big one. Um, and what it does, what I read and how I interpreted it was it's a very, I'm going to take a phrase from the summary. It says a playful examination because it
It's a
was
good way. Yeah.
very playful, right? In that it was drawn like a cartoon, but not cartoonish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, I found myself, which as I normally do with the books that we talk about here, I'm like, okay, well, what does this have to do with JRHS, the acronym for the group?
Right.
And again, and I found myself kind of looking back on my reactions to it, is that damn near at the end of every short illustration, I'm smiling.
Yeah.
It's like, so for me, it definitely hit upon the joy aspect of it, where
Yeah, he
despite
finds
the,
joy in anxiety. He finds joy in loneliness and depression. Like I really like that about Grant.
yeah, and oftentimes in some of them, I definitely picked up on the hope as well. So it was very interesting for me just kind of see this as like how yeah, in some ways, how some of the most menial tasks you can get anxious about it, or
Right.
in your moods. He talked about sort of emotions and feelings and how that sometimes there's so many, and it's hard to sometimes grasp it and work through it. And he definitely did an excellent job, at least in my perception here, illustrating that.
Hmm.
So for me, it was definitely a joy to read and a definitely a great illustration. I'm already thinking about some presents, gifts to give to my family back home,
Oh,
especially little
I don't
nephews.
know if you've hit his. I mean, I don't know if you went to his. He. There are a number of pages
Okay.
that um he has available as like wall prints.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Um, at his shop. Like here, we'll share a screen now that I'm at his shop. Cause yeah, no, I keep meaning to order myself some too. Cause, but yeah, you've got play each. From so sometimes they're from the books, sometimes they're from other stuff. That's just one of them.
Yep.
Back to shop. We got the jazz, how to finish books. Yet another book that I like. I will judge you by your bookshelf.
Yeah. But yeah, and again, seem simple. Like this idea like you have up right now, perfect. What
Yeah.
does it mean to be perfect?
Right.
And the anxiety that can come from needing to be perfect is very insightful yet digestible.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out if any of the ones are from this actual book. Because he's done like all of his books feel like this, but like there's one that's poetry, there's one that's I will judge. Oh, here's one from remember this one? Emotional Tetris.
Yep. That was a yep. That was a very powerful one.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, and I've been blessed to talk to Grant, so I know that sometimes here's the Overthinker's Alphabet. There's another print available. I know that there's truth to what it feels like is that like he'll wake up or sometimes throughout the day because he's actually an orthodontist by trade
Mhm. I did see that.
with I think four kids.
More
Um,
power to him, man.
right. So he'll get like an idea or I think the brainstorm one is a great one as something will kind of get stuck in his head and he'll be working on it and like he'll kind of work it out by drawing it.
Ah,
So
okay.
if it feels like it's thinking on the page sometimes it's because sometimes it is, or at least the first draft was. It's
Huh.
it's and then as he has the full idea, it becomes the comic. Um which I appreciate because like as somebody who thinks out loud a lot, as
Mhm.
somebody who likes to noodle with ideas and propose hypotheticals to myself or try to look at things from different angles. Um, I feel like that's what this entire. I mean, the title is what I had no idea who Grant Snider was until I saw the title of this book. Thinking about thinking, I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't think of without knowing anything about it. I was certain that it was going to be a book for me.
Which is
um,
interesting because sorry to interrupt, but one of the first things I noticed when the book was like thinking about thinking, was just like in psychology we call it metacognition, and it
okay,
literally translates to thinking about your thinking.
right.
Uh, so when I'm doing therapy with people, it's like, yeah, we're literally going to think about how you think, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
look at that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was right up my alley too.
And well, and Sam sent me her dissertation while I was reading it too. So like I skimmed her dissertation in between chapters, and like so seeing this comic creating is self therapy in some ways. As I was reading a paper, you know, those loyal listeners to 22 panels will remember Samantha uh, uh, Chavez Ramos, um, who used to be more regular, but then she got like really busy because she will unless something goes horribly wrong, be receiving her doctorate on Free Comic Book Day.
Yep.
Um, and she sent me a preview of her dissertation while I was reading this, and it's about using comics as a self care tool. Um, and it made me really wish that she was going to have time to be with us tonight because I feel like this is even like flipping that script. It's like making comics as a self-care tool, then sharing
Mhm.
them for other people to use as a self-care tool.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't believe that I had forgotten to like can't remember if I told Edgar and Sam about these books when I read them before Grant was on way back when. It was before you guys owned a shop. So it would have been like just something where I read them and went, oh, you guys should think about this. Which
Mhm.
is why I can't remember whether I did it or not. but like these are totally books that I feel like should be on your clinician's corner. You know?
Mhm.
Because I feel like, I know that I should get myself hard copies because there are probably days where I can't figure out what I'm feeling, where I could flip through and find the page that explained it. This is what I'm going through right now, sweetie.
Yep. Yeah. It's almost like, hey, this is it. Explains
Well,
it
I mean, it's
perfectly.
kind of like, I mean, I was so happy. My wife made them for me this week, and my therapist was even more happy. Because sometimes in the morning when I'm having trouble getting out of bed and whatever, I'm also having trouble communicating with her. So I now have my cheat sheets. I can point out where I'm feeling
Oh, very
or
nice.
or what I'm feeling
Yep.
or what I think I need.
Oh, super cool.
Um, and I don't have to manage to come up with the words, and she doesn't have to manage to come up with a way to interrogate me. She can just like, okay, sweetie, you seem to be having trouble. Can you point? Um, because I know at least for a lot of neurodivergent people, um, speech can become an issue.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I think for mental health, having the right words is always an issue, often because they barely exist. Mental health is comparatively such a new field
Yeah.
linguistically,
Hmm.
um, that having the words and I mean, I don't think we think about language enough. Language is a big deal.
Turns
La
out.
lang I mean, we were talking about metacognition. Language
Mhm.
is the cornerstone of metacognition. If you don't have the word to describe it, and that word isn't one that other people understand what it means, even if it's the perfect word to you, if it doesn't actually translate to somebody else, then it's not valuable. You
Hmm.
know? I mean, it's the problem. Sometimes the problem with looking for the perfect word is you come up with the perfect word and it's so obscure that whoever
Hmm.
you're saying it to is like versimilla what?
Yep. One of the things that when I teach and work with patients is that that's one of the first things I'll talk about when in reference to feelings is
Mhm.
that in the English language specifically that we have over 3,000 words to describe how you feel. So chances are, one, you probably don't know all of them, which is okay. But then two is that oftentimes it's like, yeah, I have a feeling like it's like anger, but not really. It's something.
Mhm.
So even then, it's like we got the word, but it doesn't quite match again what we're actually feeling. And
Which to
that,
me it makes me think that we're like through step one. Well, not through because you're always going to keep going, but we've managed to create the words. But 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 I bet you, and I'm just going to use like random math. Like if there are 3,000 words for feelings, let's say that there are a million words, period. I know that there are actually more than that. Let's say that the average person knows and can use, and this is actually a high number, but let's say that the average person can know and use 1% of all words. So 1% of a million is 10,000. That's
Mhm.
actually a pretty good working vocabulary. Most people don't. I mean, maybe things have changed, but at least the way I understand it, 10,000 words as a working vocabulary is actually pretty good. So
Mhm.
if there are only 3,000 um, words for feelings, that means that the working vocabulary of most people is 30. But I think if we're being really honest, when it comes to feeling words, I bet you the working vocabulary of most people is closer to 10.
Hmm.
So there might be 3,000 words, but like the number of people who know even 300, just because we don't focus enough on talking about our feelings. Like until you start using words on a regular basis. I mean, this to me is one of the reasons why literature is so important.
Yep.
There are people, oh, I only read nonfiction. It's like, you know what? Like the idea that there isn't stuff to learn from fiction is like fiction is how you get to learn about people. I mean, to learn about feelings, to learn about communication, to learn about that sort of thing, even if it's nonfiction, it's going to have to be fictionalized nonfiction.
Hmm.
Unless whoever's writing can get in, literally has been able to interview every person involved. Okay, what were you thinking at this time?
Hmm.
you know, the difference between a nonfiction and a fiction is like specific communication and emotions. So there's a lot of truth to fiction because it involves specific communication and emotions. It it's a different form of truth, you know.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go to the historian if I want to know when a battle happened,
Right.
but the fiction of the era is going to tell me a lot about how the people who lived during the time of that battle felt about it that the historian will have much less idea about.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I love about Grant's work is like for every cartoon he has that starts jumbled and comes out
Yep.
like neat, there's
Mhm.
another one that starts neat, but then he starts asking the questions and it ends completely chaotic, but often more beautiful for its chaos.
Yep.
So it's not like the he talks himself into a bad place. It's that he takes this order and feels uncomfortable with it and turns it into chaos, but can also see, oh, this chaos is actually better than that. Like I feel like there was one that involved there was like three in a row, like I am a circle, but then the circle didn't become
Yes.
and I am a triangle, and then like turning it on, and then I am a square, and like that finished with being a diamond.
Yep.
um, but it was all like looking at the pros and cons of it seems great to be a perfect circle, but
Hmm.
oh, but then you see um and I think so much of our thoughts are like that. Like simplicity
Hard.
is simplicity is generally not good. Simplicity is generally like you're missing massive amounts of things and like relying on the world not to fuck you up.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Like, because if you stick to your simplistic worldview of anything and anything pierces that,
Hmm.
what do? You either push back and go, nope, this is the way it is.
Hmm.
Or you're like, oh my God, I spent my whole life thinking that this is the way it is, and it's not, and I don't know what to do now. Even if it's like, okay, yeah, no, you're a 87-degree triangle rather than a 90-degree triangle. It's
Right.
not as much of damage to your worldview. um, but at the same time, like complete chaos,
Hmm.
not good, scary, but if there's a chaos that you can see the order and beauty to, if there's a chaos that you accept, but also push back against for yourself, I'm trying to, I'm thinking in meta terms and trying to figure out how to use words for, and this is the other thing that I appreciated so much reading this is like, oh, like And it's like the definition of why I love comics, and I think why a lot of us love comics is like so many of these ideas make sense, so much more sense when you've got the words and the pictures,
Mhm.
even though the pictures can be very abstract.
Very much.
You know, I feel like I'm dominating. More thoughts,
No,
Lee. Give me
yeah,
thoughts.
because like that's why I went with the idea of like simple is hard.
Yeah.
It seems like an oxymoron, it seems like a paradox, but again, and I'm sure I don't have to really say this, but with as a kid, we think about things fairly simply, right? That is
Mhm.
red, that's a cat, dog, right? Alphabetically, etc. But the more we learn, the more we experience, the more nuanced our thinking processes are, right? So then it shifts from it's not just red, it's burgundy or it's garnet or it's ruby, right? It becomes
Right.
much more nuanced. And then the more nuanced we become, the more advanced our thinking processes, which we move away from this idea of it being simple. And that's where going back to the idea of communication, right? Fiction, nonfiction, even as we talk to each other, is how does that communication, do we convey what it is that we mean? Or how do we, well, excuse me, how do we experience that thing, wherever that thing may be that we're sharing in that moment? So at least from what I'm saying is thinking about thinking is that even though I'll say in large part it's about anxiety, but it was so many different avenues of how to experience anxiety, where it was general enough to really capture it, to get the really essence of what that niche of anxiety was, but also to say, yeah, this is what it can feel like. Not necessarily it has to
Yeah.
be that way, but what it can feel like or look like. Which, again, I was very impressed by the book, and again, the idea of that almost at the end of every freaking panel, I'm smiling. Or it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. I mean, I love that it somehow makes me smile and think all at once.
Hmm.
When you were bringing up the way you frame it when you're looking at these books, and I love that you frame it that way because I pick these books on vibe. Like I know what the book club is. And I'm like, does this feel like it somehow belongs in this book club? That's that like I don't let myself think too hard about picking the books.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, frankly, I think, knowing my own overthinking autistic brain, if I
Mhm.
thought too hard about it, I would never pick the next book.
Right.
So I
Oh, yeah.
force myself to go on vibes. So I love it when you come back and have put it in that frame, particularly because as you do, I start thinking about it like this is a book of resistance. It's resisting complacency. It's resisting accepting the world as you think it's supposed to be if it doesn't feel like the world you want it to be. It's
Yeah.
resisting the idea that you have to think like others. And it's certainly about survival because it's about like not getting caught in a quagmire of your own brain. It's
Right.
about unraveling difficult
Yeah.
concepts or thoughts or feelings or emotions and finding contentment and peace and happiness and joy out of them rather than allowing them to take you to despair or anger or you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I definitely, I think there was one, I can't find it right now, but there was a short on resistance for me where it was just like, it was resistant to this idea that of the anxiety, especially like the
Mhm.
challenges that the anxiety can present. But then it was also like it's resistant in that it can change. that you can think about it differently, right? And I would argue that that is a form of resistance is going against the status quo, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the way people think, but you don't have to think that way, or you don't have to experience it that way.
right.
And there's a big part of choice in that, which I found to be like very uh, important to sort of note.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend this week where they were dealing with um, a work environment where there was a lot of things that, like, the responses that's how we've always done them, and with there being a couple of problems to that. The first, that, like, so little of it has been codified that, like, if you're new to the work environment, you don't know. This is how, they have a lot of things that they do well on autopilot, except that it's not good autopilot if not everybody knows the process that isn't written down
Hmm.
or referred to or whatever. But then the other question is, like, okay, this is how you've always done it, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't also be able to say, why is this how we've always done it?
Mhm.
Have we always done it this way and it works because it should work and because it will always work and because we really have figured out the best way to make it work? Or
Mhm.
have we always done it this way and we just haven't run into massive problems yet, and therefore nobody's bothered to do anything?
Right.
And it could be better, or there are small problems that we ignore because they're not big enough problems. Or, I think there's value to, like, eh, one of the reasons that writing is the things that separates humans. Just like, I mean, have you ever read Sapiens? I think Noah Hudari.
I'm familiar with the title, but no, I've not read it.
It's a fascinating book, and, like, there are parts of it that I love and parts of it that I think are still a work in progress, or show that it's an anthropologist book not looking at enough other, like, I tend to like the the more different angles a work comes from, particularly when looking at big questions. But
Hmm.
one of the things that he posits that I do love is that what separates Homo sapiens from likely previous Homo species, and certainly non-Homo species, is the ability to share fiction.
Mm.
And when he says that, he doesn't just mean, like, fiction as in literature or comics or whatnot. He means, like, what's a corporation? Corporation isn't real, except that we've agreed that it's real.
Mm.
What's money?
Yeah.
Money is not real, except that we've agreed that it is real.
Hmm.
I mean, to me, this is there are two questions that cryptocurrency people don't seem to ask, that are essential to whether or not it's valuable. The first is, what problem does it solve? Why do we
Yeah.
need cryptocurrency when we have other currency?
Hmm.
And the second is it good for currency to fluctuate in value?
Mm.
What is the purpose of, I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about inflation all the time, like cryptocurrency going up in prices is massive deflation. Deflation can be really bad. If it drops in price, that's massive inflation.
Hmm.
Suddenly you're one Bitcoin buys you half as much as it used to. That's 50% inflation.
Yeah.
If it's currency, I don't know exactly what to call it, but it feels like it's not really currency. It's more like stock, except that stock's supposed to be tied to something. So it's like this weird gambling market.
Yeah, but I think yeah, I think you're really
And-
illustrating the point, right? It's like how you think about things, right?
right.
And how often do we do that, right? Because for those of you listening, it's like when Tab's asked the question of, is it good that money should fluctuate? I'm just like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. Like, I'd never really
Well, I
thought
mean,
about
you are now a shop owner.
it.
If a dollar will buy a comic book when you get it as a shop owner,
Hmm.
but the next day it'll only buy half a comic book, is that a good thing?
It's definitely
Or would it be
challenging.
really hard to stay in business?
Oh, very hard. Yeah,
I mean, kind of the entire point of currency
a little bit.
is that we don't have to, we can use this fictional thing rather than having to go, how many eggs equals a comic book?
Hmm.
How many hours of washing your car equals a comic book?
Right.
It can go, oh, washing your car equals $20, a comic book equals $5. I can wash somebody else's car, not even your car, and then come buy four comic books from you.
Right.
But if in between me washing the car for $20 and me coming to the store to buy comic books, that $20 became worth $10, then I can get half as much for it.
Right.
And that's what currency fluctuation is. Like, which
Mhm.
is why like everybody would every time people are, oh, you got to get on cryptocurrency, you can make so much money. I'm like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, at least for me, it goes back to because I don't know nearly
Yeah.
anything about cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
but it's being able to ask those questions, right? And even
Yeah,
as a
no, I didn't
counselor,
mean to make it an economic
no, 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 not
conversation.
at
I
all.
want to make that clear to listeners or whatnot. And while I'm pretty certain that my long-term societal thoughts on cryptocurrency are true, I also think that part of the problem might be the word currency. It might have a legitimate purpose
Hmm.
if we were looking at it as something other than currency. I don't think it fits the definition of currency.
Sure. And thank you, because that's also very important. Is like these words that we use and the sort of weight or meaning that they have to us, right? The whole idea, like, why is just think about the words because I work a lot with patients with anger. The idea of what's the difference between mad and rage,
Yeah.
right? Those two words, they're in the family, as it were, in quotes here, family of anger,
Probably come up as synonyms in a lot of thesauruses.
but they mean two completely different things, right?
I
So,
think for most people.
yeah,
And what rage means probably has a massive, my rage, your rage, and Joe's rage could be completely different rages.
100%. And how they look and how they present themselves, right?
Right.
So it's even those words or currencies, like what does it mean? Because we have the sort of dictionary definition, but then we can have a sort of symbolic definition to us and how we look and think about those things, right? Uh, so not just looking at how we think, but the word choice, because you're right in terms of how we communicate with one another. If not orally, it's written, right? So when we write things, and oh my goodness, I'm just reminded of again another example of my English teacher in technical school, where he just went through this example of um, how language can impact emotion and feeling and how you react to a story. And he just went through a simple example of how going through and it was a puppy in one example and then a mongrel in another example. But other than that one word, It
Hmm.
was the same paragraph, but it has such an emotional sort of impact, and all from that sort of word choice and how we think about that and how we feel about those things. Extremely important.
I mean, I always think about I had a student that was semi nonverbal,
Hmm.
but he could write and certainly like understood words amazingly well, that sort of thing. Um, and discovered comics through me. And part of the reason he wound up discovering them through me is nobody realized until the first time like he was looking over my shoulder at something. Um, because he also like he very rarely kept his eyes in one place for very long.
Mhm.
So like he always had to have things read to him because kind of the assumption that we worked from is he didn't have the motor control to read. He had the processing power to take the words and whatnot. Um, but like we discovered at one point that like no, actually he could take in massive amounts visually at a glance.
Okay.
And that's when he and I started exploring comic books one time. And I remember um we were I for in Nate Powell's Save It for Later, there is um uh, uh, a representation of the Arkansas school day desegregation
Okay.
where the boy and the girl are literally escorted to class by
Mhm.
the National Guard.
Yeah.
Um and Nate Powell made the decision and like talking to Nate, he hadn't fully grasped why he'd done it, but he loved what my students said. Um had made the decision to represent the characters or at least the kids as anthropomorphic puppies.
Got it.
Um, and what my students said, like talking about that decision, like was nobody thinks any puppy is inherently different from another puppy.
Huh.
Nobody looks at a dog and says, "Oh, that dog is brown, so they're different from this dog that's yellow."
Huh. Okay.
So his argument was that it added power to the scene because it emphasized that the color was a human choice,
Hmm.
not an actual factor. And I guess
Okay.
where I'm going with this is like, yeah, our visual vocabulary also
Mhm.
matters. The way we perceive things, the way we, I mean, for that matter, let's just think of our much maligned medium to begin with. How many people, the second you tell them that you're into comics, are like, "Oh, I got over those when I was kids,"
Yep. Yeah.
and it's like, uh, then you're missing a lot of really great stuff.
A little bit.
I mean, that's like deciding that because I had read all of the Roald Dahl books that I was overreading because I'd grown out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
It's like I watched all the Disney movies and I'm done with movie and I watched all the
Yeah.
Disney. I watched The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, so I know like I've grown out of movies.
Right. I'm all
That's
done.
kid stuff.
Right.
Like it's the only medium like that the medium. I mean, to a certain extent, cartoons, if you consider cartoons separate from film, which they belong separate from film, they're kind of tangential to film, but I would be willing to call them a medium rather than a genre.
Sure.
Comics and cartoons are treated as mediums
Mhm.
that are for kids.
Right. That talks a lot to the perspective, right?
Right. Um, Even as we talk about these comics and the fact that they take really complicated things and like allow us to think and see them in ways that we couldn't manage to do before because we were only thinking linguistically and
Hmm.
being able to see the shape of things winds up mattering. I mean, I like a lot of his abstract ones, like the one where he's climbing the mountain
Yep.
and you're actually reading down in V's,
Yep.
and eventually you get to am I seeing the world from a new perspective or looking back on what I came from, and
Yeah.
but like not just the visuals of the story, but the specific visual way that the story is told gives that dichotomy of because that question at the end, just like every part going up to it, was mostly rhetorical. The answer is yes.
Hmm.
Yes, you're seeing the world in front of you and you're seeing how far you've come. It's not an either or. It like the entire comic illustrates false dichotomies that we give ourselves.
Yep.
But the way it does that is as much in its form as any of the specific images. And there's certainly no way that you could recreate that form in prose.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I feel like I'm describing it horribly right now. I don't know who listening will have any idea what I'm talking about in terms of the power of this comic. Um, yeah,
Yeah. It's such a unique medium, as it were,
yeah.
uh, that provokes a lot of thought. And I'm even reflecting now, not just with this group, but other groups that I've been a part of in your podcast is, yeah, thinking about things differently and how I even, I know we've even done this in Saga, right? Is
Mhm.
I'll have read it and I've thought about it a certain way, but then I read it again and I think about it differently because I'm a
Well, and the reason I love doing the book clubs is somebody else read the same thing, but they saw a different angle.
yeah, it's like someone likes the will. I no, sorry. It's like, oh my goodness. Um, but it's so interesting too. And
I do think it's really impressive the way he makes you feel sorry for the will for like four whole issues, and you're almost to the point that you like him, and then you hate
yep,
him, hate him
forever,
forever.
forever, forever and ever. Yeah, but that's I think that's one of the beauty, not just with comics, but especially comics, uh, being able to
Storytelling.
look back. Yes,
I mean,
storytelling.
this goes back to what I commented on earlier about there being so much truth in fiction. There might be less facts, but facts and
Hmm.
truth are I mean, that's kind of like anger and rage. They're
Hmm.
related. They're
But
not
yeah,
the
oh, so
same.
different. Oh yeah. Well, there's oh my goodness, there's a famous quote by Mark Twain. It's like the best fiction has a little bit of truth in it,
Yep.
or don't let your facts get in the way of my fiction, something like that.
Something like I mean,
He's got a few.
yeah, he's got a lot. But I think it's don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Mm.
But that might have been. I mean, there's the great quote. What's the okay? Now I'm going down the internet rabbit
The
hole.
whole.
Don't let facts. Never let the truth get in the way of a good
Yeah.
story.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Um,
And again, it's about sort of, I don't want to say narrow-minded. I don't want to come across
though
that way,
that,
but that's
that
sort of,
that is, I think, an unverified um attribution to Twain.
ah,
Um,
today I learned.
right.
But then it still to the point of like, and it goes back to what you were saying is just because you've been doing it that way and you're doing it that way is at times like, well, why do you do it that way?
Yeah.
And being able to exercise that sort of mental flexibility in CBT is that mental flexibility to think about things differently
Yeah.
rather than just this one and only way.
Well, and like empathy has become a hot button word
Hmm.
in our nation lately. Um, I think in large part because, as is too often the case, it's confused with both sympathy and approval.
Mm,
Um, whereas empathy, I don't think is supposed to be either. It's supposed to be try to understand.
uh,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? You don't have to think that their reasoning is good to try to figure out where they're coming from.
right.
Um, you don't have to approve of their actions to empathize with their actions. And you certainly don't
Mhm.
have to have sympathy for the consequences that they receive from actions that you think are deplorable to empathize with why they took those actions.
Right.
Um, but being able to step out and have that empathy um is often the difference between looking at people who do things that are completely antithetical to your own thoughts and beliefs as human or not.
Hmm.
Um, and like that's a big deal. Like
Very.
as soon as you won't allow yourself to think that they can be good human beings and look at the world differently from you, um, it's how you wind up with extreme actions because yeah.
Yeah.
And we're
You get
going
like,
dark again. I don't want to go dark with this. Because overall, this was a joyful book. I was really happy
yeah.
to reread it today. So
Well, here,
I think it's time to go towards wrap up. What
well,
were you going to
here's
say? You said
where,
here's
and
right.
yeah, I can help bring it back in the swing. It's actually kind of funny because I
Good.
feel like we're mimicking the book a little bit, how it
Yeah.
can seem sort of chaotic and dark at times, but the sort of upswing is
Mhm.
that one of the, again, at the risk of romanticizing psychology a little bit, is that
There are worse things to romanticize.
that's very true. The beautiful thing that I love about this field and especially the approach to CBT is that you can control how you think and how you perceive. That even though that may be the way it is now, doesn't mean it's the way it's always going to be.
Right.
So taking that as a sort of upswing.
You get to make decisions. And I think that's where I was going is that like how we choose to look at ourselves, how we choose to look at others,
Hmm.
um, can have a profound impact on both how we act in the world, but also how we feel.
Hmm. Very much.
Um, and this is also where like this is another place where truth and facts can be difficult, you know, because there are people who won't allow themselves to be empathetic to people who they think have gone too far in one direction because well it's just not true. There's nothing that's ever going to change them to be that good, meaningful, whatever. And it's like you're confusing facts with truth. It might be a fact that's going to be hard to change them, or that you're unlikely to change them, or whatever, but there is truth to they are not irredeemable. And that truth is helpful to you whether it's fact or not. One of the probably the biggest foundation of my own life view that I wind up having arguments and or spirited discussions with people about the most, because either I have trouble expressing it properly or they have trouble wrapping their head around what I mean, is assume the best intentions.
Ah,
I bend over backwards no matter what the situation to assume the best intentions. That doesn't mean that they have good intentions or intentions that I agree with. It certainly doesn't mean that their actions are automatically good or whatever. It's trying to put myself in their shoes and figure out what the best intentions that fit their course of action are. And assuming, for my purposes, until new information tells me otherwise, that that's the truth.
mhm.
Um, and it doesn't matter if it's the truth, first of all, because I am never going to hurt myself by respecting somebody too much.
Mhm.
I am never going to hurt myself by believing too much in humanity. Because assuming the best intentions doesn't mean like not thinking realistically about what, like figuring out their intentions, those same best intentions that could lead to that bad action could lead to other bad actions. It's not about like, oh, not preparing for the worst.
Right.
It's about I'm not going to decide that they chose to be the villain of their own movie.
Hmm.
They have a version of this where they're the hero. How can I look at this where they could feel like they're the hero? That's what assume the best intentions means to me. And
Sure.
it might mean that they're completely uninformed or have faulty logic or, all sorts of things that infuriate me beyond belief, but don't make them bad people.
Right.
Because I don't think there are many bad people. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition. I don't think there are many intentionally bad people.
Okay.
I think there are many people who the sum of their actions makes it very hard to call them good people.
Okay.
But I don't think that they did it because they wanted to hurt you. I think the number of times somebody goes out and says, "I want to hurt this person,"
Hmm.
versus "I need this for me," or "I want this for me,"
Right.
or "I think the world owes me this," is actually pretty slim. I mean, there is the revenge aspect. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not saying it never happens where there is the goal to hurt this person, but I think that's one of the most rare motivations for actions, just because the return sucks.
It never really gets fulfilled. Like it's never really
I mean, I
fulfilling.
think I think most of us like once hurt somebody on purpose when we were a kid and went, "Oh God, I feel worse, not better," and
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah. Generally.
I mean, you know what I mean? I don't even think that's something that most of us needed to be taught. I think most of us, even when we dream of other people having pain, the second it turns to how could we inflict it, it becomes really quickly, that seems like a lot of effort for no return.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
for me personally, as soon as my brain goes that way, that's when I know I'm in a depressive state
Right.
because I'm starting to have delusional thoughts. The idea that anything would be solved by me, even in an aha moment, making somebody feel bad is delusional. I know better. So as soon as I'm fixated on how can I put together my speech that makes them go, oh my
Yeah.
God, I was wrong. I hurt so much.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm being delusional. That's right. I'm bipolar. That happens to me. How do I get out of this?
And it's such a great illustration example. And I appreciate you sharing that. This idea of I'm thinking this way. Why am I thinking this way? I don't want to think this way.
Right.
I'm going to think about this differently.
It's
Right.
certainly not actually going to be made better by making that person who just felt like they were doing their job.
hmm
Even if I can't understand how they put themselves in that, I know where they were at. I don't understand all of the assumptions or whatever that got them there. They don't make sense to me. That's why I'm not like that.
Right.
But I am actually certain that all of those things, I don't think this is a bad person, even though the things that they're doing hurt me.
Right. hmm
I don't I think my pain is a side effect of what they think is a good thing, not the purpose of what they're doing.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
hmm
Um,
Makes sense to me.
I mean, I hate to even go on this level. I think not necessarily all of them, but probably a lot of the rank and file, like ICE and Border Patrol people, truly think that they're making a safer nation. And that the pain, the suffering that they're experiencing and causing are a side effect of a greater good. I don't agree with them. I'm really bothered by what level of misinformation, lack of empathy, lack of insight, lack of self-reflection society. I mean, this is where we go back to social psychology, like the social psychology of a nation where anybody could easily get themselves in that mindset is really terrifying to me, but not surprising to me. We're a nation that like would rather have kids go through lockdown drills as part of every year of school than think rationally about guns. I mean, what's the psychology of that?
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, I'm not even somebody who wants. I mean, I have reached a point where I think taking all of the guns away would be the lesser of two evils. But I am not a take all the guns away guy until the gun rights people got to the point where they had gotten the Supreme Court to treat the Second Amendment like it was so absolute that I'm worried about somebody saying, oh, no, you can't take away my tactical nuke. I'm a law abiding citizen. I haven't used my nuclear bomb on anybody. Of course, you're a law abiding citizen. There's no law that you've had to abide by.
it's an interesting situation, and especially when it comes to the social aspect of it, right? It goes back to this idea of we have how many hundreds of people in this country now, and it's sort of broken down into
300 million,
300 million, and this idea of
450 million guns.
this idea is simple is hard, right?
Yeah.
And we got 450 million, oh, excuse me, 300 million people, and
About
then
350 million. About 350 million people, about 450 million guns. We
350
actually
million people.
crossed over where we have more guns than people in this nation.
But the idea of like 350 million people and the way we think about things is in two ways.
Right.
It's it's sometimes simple is hard, and sometimes simple it doesn't do us justice because uh, as people, the way our brains develop is we think about things differently and more nuanced.
Yeah.
And
Well, and like just going back to the metacognition
yeah,
standpoint and like early on, I met it. Like one of the biggest differences in terms of how people think is how many people they think they're responsible for considering.
Hmm.
Um, I think I think in general, um, the people who think that annual lockdown drills are are an okay price to pay for not having laws about where you can carry guns. I'm not even talking about the laws about what guns you can. I mean, the biggest problem, like if we're having real conversations, is like so many of these shootings, no law has been broken until they pull the trigger. You know, if you can't protect people before the trigger's pulled, then like what the hell's the point? If you can't have the police officer go, "Hey, this isn't a place that you should be carrying your AR-15. Please take it home and put it in your safe." Oh, you're not willing to do that? I need to take you in for questioning because I'm curious as to why you need to carry an AR-15 down Main Street. Um, but then we tell kids that they have to prepare for that. Like where I'm going is like, what does that tell the kids about their value? And yeah, some of them don't know anything about it, and therefore it's just like a thing that they do. But at some point, some of them are going to learn, or some of them are going to work it out for themselves because it's not hard to think that through. It's not hard to think through I mean, for that matter, and I've had enough kids like say this to me during lockdown drills, like, aside from the fact that doing a lockdown drill is like a band-aid on a cancer, like, the next shooter is probably in the room while you're doing the lockdown drill, right?
Hmm.
They're counterproductive. And generally by high school, kids are pretty aware of that. It's like, why are we telling the one among us who might go crazy exactly what we're going to do so that they can prepare for that? And the answer is because we're not willing to have that thinking about thinking conversation, that meta conversation, that make certain we're talking about the same things conversation.
Seems that way.
You know, I mean, how often do debates in both the public and private sphere wind up coming down to one party insisting that the other party means something that the other party is saying is not what they mean? In the public sphere, like whether it's gun rights versus gun control, I'm not saying, and most people aren't saying, take away all the guns. It's like have a level of gun responsibility on par with driving responsibility, licenses, tests to prove that you can shoot straight, you know, etc. Um, I mean, for that matter, like if somebody is driving your car and it blows a red light on a red light camera, you're responsible for the ticket. If somebody borrows your gun, you're not responsible for what they do with it. You're not even really responsible for having reported it stolen or borrowed I mean, like, there is so much that could be done long before. I'm going to get off guns, but just because that's not where I wanted to go overall, it's just one of the places that sticks in my head a lot because of my own experiences. Um, uh, but like, I mean, to use another public, pro-life people always wanted to call pro-abortion or pro-choice people pro-abortion people, you know, even when they're pro-abortion people or pro-abortion people, they don't think of themselves as pro-abortion people. They think of themselves as women's rights people or healthcare choice people, like because you've got an issue where it's not as simple as the fetus or the fertilized egg, depending on what stage you're at. You've got the mother. The mother's a human being too. you, you know um but when both sides of the argument refuse to acknowledge any part or discount all parts of where the other side is coming from, you don't get to have a conversation. Um, because you don't agree on the terms. You don't agree on, and we started this out with Iran, you know, the two 10 point bases of the ceasefire were that got published, the one published by the US and the one published by Iran, were different enough that anybody who looked at them went, oh yeah, negotiation is gonna be hard because they think, or at least they're publicly saying, they're at very different places. um you gotta agree to some like foundational terms so that you
Mhm.
know you're talking about the same thing before you can have a discussion. And that actually includes with yourself. Like when you're working with yourself and you use the same word for I'm angry that I stubbed my toe and I'm angry that my kid crashed the car and I'm angry that I got drunk and slapped my wife, um, you don't have the perspective that those are three very different things.
Mhm.
You know, um, yeah, I'm fascinated by language. I don't think I don't know if you've noticed that about me, Lee.
Oh,
I'm fascinated
I
by
picked up on
language.
that.
Fascinated by I'm going to end with because it's a fun one. And the I'll give the moral of the story first. The Catherine Woods translation is Little Prince is the one that is the one that should be purchased and the only one that should be purchased because the other translations might be more technically accurate between French and English, but they lose the whimsy, poetry, and silliness of the story. And I can literally quote from like page two, like all you need to know for why this is true. In newer translations, there's a line that says, "Grown-ups do not understand, and it is difficult for children to explain things to them." The original translation was, "Grown-ups never understand anything by themselves, and it is tiresome for children to always and forever be explaining things to them."
That's pretty good.
Literal meanings are very much the same, but one is beautiful and sinks in, and one is boring and open to huge interpretation. And ironically, it's the more poetic one that has less interpretation available to it, you know. Um, that I think, unless you have any other last words, is a great place to end it. The book was Grant Snider's Thinking About Thinking. I cannot recommend it enough. I cannot recommend Grant's work, period, enough. Poetry comics. Um, I will judge you by your bookshelf. There's some more. His Substack is also fantastic reading. So for the joy, resistance, hope, and survival book club and support group, there was more of a book club and therapy session this month. One of these days we'll have a group again. Um, this has been Lee
Fun.
Woods from Psychocomicology, and we will see you after the next page.